Hey, how do you feel about some high rarity cards, or maybe some foreign ones, or maybe be ahead of the game with others by preparing for future set releases with very quick shipping? Check out EJ Gaming and use code British5 on checkout for 5% off on all your orders. Link in the description. Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So, Maze of Millenia is arriving very shortly this week. I've spoken about one of the cards that is going to be significant towards that set's release, which was Transaction Rollback. Uh, as of yet, I have not made a video speaking about this card, and I kind of was afraid to make a video around this card because right now this is like one of the most hot topics right now. No pun intended. Like, everybody knows how really good this card is, but I kind of want to talk about Bonfire in a more casual perspective, or in a manner that is a little bit more unorthodox than not for the player base. So let's get the elephant out of the room. Basically, Bonfire is a spell card that reads: add one level 4 or lower pyro monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one Bonfire per turn. Before I get to the cusp of how significantly Bonfire is for pyros in general, because pyros do have a track record opposed as to what it's going to be right now, let's just address the main use of this card and the reason most people kind of want it, like, more than not, and that's because of this card. So I already made a couple of videos in this channel talking about it. I think I was one of the first people who brought up Snake Eye as a theme the moment it became meta in the OCG. Feel free to check out that video. But yeah, basically, Snake Eye is a pyro archetype that debuted in Age of Overlord, and in Phantom Nightmare we are getting more cards that support the theme. It goes in tandem with the Sinful Spoils engine in order to facilitate the ease and summoning of level 1 fire monsters in general. This is one of the flagship monsters that's going to be supporting the theme in February, and the reason this card is very strong is because of its synergy with the Bonfire. So right off the bat, Bonfire becomes a tutor for level 1 fire monsters in any archetype without exhausting your normal summon. That is a really big deal. We've already seen the Sinful Spoils engine being used very predominantly. And yeah, so as of right now, I'd say this is what people are most anticipating it for. Now let's talk about the actual other implications that should be done with this card. So, until Phantom Nightmare releases, we're pretty much stuck with Bonfire as a card that's not going to be as impactful for 2.5 weeks. So let's talk about themes and archetypes that really help this card. The first one we can talk about is Centurion. Centurion is an archetype that already debuted in Valiant Smashers, which was on November. And Centurion Trudea is one of the main monsters in the theme that really helps tutor your engine, and it is a level 4 pyro monster. So basically, Bonfire makes the Centurion archetype a lot more consistent. It pretty much makes it so it's a lot stronger with its non-engine spots. And a deck that can have a lot of room for non-engine while staying very consistent is very helpful for the, as a theme. It pretty much gives you the ability to try to counter the meta game while still staying strong with what your deck is supposed to be doing, and Bonfire kind of helps this strategy. Another strategy that people are looking forward to with Bonfire is Volcanics. I do have Volcanic Rocket here as well. And yeah, Volcanics as a whole is just a really degenerate archetype. Basically, the way Volcanics try to win the game is by cheesing your opponent, just burning them like with all their monsters, and not really just like focusing on the battle phase with their boss monsters and themes and etc. So Bonfire pretty much just makes all those volcanic strategies a lot more consistent. So that's something that you should be keeping your eye on into. Now let's talk about other themes or other cards that actually work with Bonfire that probably not many people are thinking about. So the first card we're gonna talk about is Agnimal Candle. Uh, Basically, this monster has the effect that if it's added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon this card. So essentially, Bonfire becomes like a special summon for this monster. Also, let's also read this part. Once per chain, up to threats per turn, if a monster is sent to the graveyard, you can increase or decrease this card's level by 1. The reason this effect is super significant is because this is a tuner monster. So essentially, Bonfire is giving you access to a tuner that can become either level 5, 6, or 7, or 3, 2, 1. And that's pretty cool. Just having the ability to be able to do that. Let's see what other things we can grab. The TG theme or the TG archetype, which also got support in Age of Overlord, has one of their main monsters from the theme, who is a pyro monster. So essentially, with Bonfire, you're making this strategy a lot more consistent as well, without relying on the Sinful Spoils engine. So right off the bat, TG is another really playable archetype that just becomes slightly more consistent with his one card starter. We have the incantation monsters. So incantation candle is a pyro monster, so the Bonfire can also grab it, meaning that if you decide to play a dedicated ritual strategy like Novel A or the new Silent Force archetype that's debuting in Phantom Nightmare, or Necros, just to name like a few strategies, Dogmatica. This card is searchable with Bonfire, so it is another consideration to take note of. We have Volcanic Rocket. We already spoke about the volcanic theme, so I'm just gonna put this here. Not much needs to be said about it. So the hand monsters. Fire Hand and Ice Hand have been power crept ever since the latter half of 2014. However, against other dedicated strategies that just don't revolve around interactions with the graveyard, this is a really cool, potent engine that really just helps you it helps you defeat floodgates. It helps you defeat a few other problematic monsters. It applies pressure to your opponent. These cards, upon destruction, by any means, they trigger their effects. So if your opponent even tries to negate their summons but ends up destroying these cards, they also like really help with solidifying against boards. And now we have a card that pretty much tutors the better half of this engine. We also have the Barrier Statue of the Inferno. This card is not going to be very played like in the format, most likely because most decks that are going to be meta relevant are going to be fire attribute based, like Rescue Ace and Fire Kings. However, as a potential side deck option against like the non-fire decks, this card is now searchable with Bonfire, meaning that it has a lot more ease in how to be added to your hand. We have the Neo Flamels. So Flamvel is a theme that you're probably just going to see it in Edison format. You're not going to see it outside of Edison. But I felt this card is still interesting to talk about because it is a monster that has a quick play, quick effect to banish, and it can tutor out 200 defense monsters from your deck. And so this is a very, very interesting tech card that you can take into consideration if you just want a monster that can just banish resources from your opponent's graveyard as a quick effect. You can use this card and it is searchable by Bonfire. We have the Nemesis monsters. Like, we already seen the Nemesis engine being played in a couple of decks. Basically, the engine being Nemesis Flag and the Neo and Eschatos, which is the dragon monster. And now with Bonfire, you have a more cohesive way of like getting to that engine. So this probably is not gonna happen, but the Ritual Beast theme do have a Pyro monster that is searchable now, and later this year, well, later this year, hopefully, maybe because it was already released in OCG, we're probably going to get support for in the TCG for Terminal World archetypes, Ritual Beast being one of them. So even though Bonfire into Apelio is not like the most sought after like strategy you should be considering in this archetype, it is still a very notable mention. Just in the off chance you decide to like play an engine that involves pyro monsters, but also keep consistency with your Ritual Beast theme. You have Royal Firestorm guards. So back in the past, this used to be played in the volcanic strategy as a way of just like facilitating the grind game, just recouping your resources because getting to 4 pyro monsters in your graveyard is not a very daunting task with the volcanic theme. So Royal Firestorm guards just served as another like combo enabler that just kept facilitating your plays. And then you have Volcanic Trooper, so basically another volcanic card. So now that we talked about the utility behind Bonfire, and now that we talked about like all the possible cards that could be played in this with this card before Phantom Nightmare, let's talk about a little bit about post Phantom Nightmare. Uh, as of right now, I think it comes to no surprise that Bonfire is like one of the biggest issues on everybody's mind, just because of its price tag, and not enough people know what can be done about it in terms of like the fire strategy, because the Snake Eye theme is pretty much going to be a very dominant engine moving forward, and alternatives are kind of needed if you want to play this engine or you just want to play a dedicated fire deck that can play engines similar to this one. And there are not many solutions out there. Uh, like if you're facing a Bonfire player and you're not playing Bonfire in your deck and you're playing like a mirror match or a match that involves like the Populous card, you're probably going to be a little bit more behind than others because this card really does bolster the strategy. But that's not to say that there are no other strategies that can be played that actually help support the theme. One thing that you can do is play an engine that can facilitate the summon of Infernal Flame Banshee. One example of this is the Super Heavy Samurai engine, basically consisting of Wakaushi, a motorbike, etc. Like, it's not like the most consistent engine out there, but it is an engine that comprises of multiple cards. It does not really break a lot, and it's a lot more budget friendly than just relying on Bonfire. It does take more spots out of your main deck. However, like I feel like it still very viable because it gives you the avenue of playing other rank fours. It gives you the avenue of like doing synchros and like other things like that. Another card that we can talk about that also functions very similarly to Bonfire, but does not like really do the same thing, is Wearow. For those who don't know what this card is, this card reads: if you control a level 1 monster, you can add one level 1 monster from your deck to your hand. During the end phase of this turn, you take 2000 damage if you did not normal summon the added monster, or a card with the same name after activating this card. So essentially, what this means is this is another searcher for Poplar, because Poplar is a level 1 monster, meaning that it does trigger its effect to special summon, and it does trigger its effect to add a Snake Eye spell. However, this is significantly less powerful than Bonfire because it does rely on you already controlling a level 1 monster. However, I feel like depending on what archetype, what theme, and what strategy you're playing, this still is a really strong option because another really cool thing about this card is that not only does it add you the Snake Eye cards, but it also adds you other popular level 1 monsters like a Fed Veiler, Droll and Lockbird, like just to name Diddy Crow, just to name like a few examples. I might make another video going more in depth on like potential options that you can do if you cannot afford Bonfire at the moment. Feel free to write in the comments and I'll happily do so. But until then, this is pretty much like my introduction to Bonfire. Uh, I feel this card has a lot of utility. I feel like the pyro theme in itself was not really the most supported theme for a lot of years, and this card pretty much just helps with that. But yeah, I hope you found this informative. I hope you found this to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.